Hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Wednesday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com. Brought to you, as always, by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. You know what wrestling means. It's Wrestling Wednesdays with Gary Althiser, and we have a special guest off the top of the show. It is from Louisville, and it is a reigning state champion in Dominic Hoffarth. Dominic, I'm going to bring you in. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Can you hear us? We good? Can you hear us now? Oh, having some issues with Dominic while we're waiting for those to be resolved. Gary, I know you've been watching this kid for a while as reigning state champion, and you've done your research a little bit. What can you say about him while we wait for these technical issues to be fixed?
He's from the times I've seen him, he's dominant. He's very intense on the mat. He doesn't mess around. I saw him in the OWL finals, I believe, last season. I watched him that whole tournament, and he really just kind of blew through everybody there with some high-level competition. You could tell he was on a mission that year, last year, and it obviously worked out for him.
Yeah, and like I said in this intro, reigning state champion, I believe the only state champion last year as far as the YSN family is concerned. We had a couple of placers, a couple of people on that podium, but he was the only one that was able to raise the trophy up high from Louisville.
Yeah, he was, and I think that he was probably the odds-on favorite. Him and Logan Hours were the two that everybody was watching, and he's the one that came through with it. Going back and looking at his scores, he did not really even have much competition. His closest match at the state tournament was 7-3, and that was his opening match. Total points scored, you go if you're a state champion, you go 4-0. It's a 16-man bracket. Was total points scored was 32 for him and 4 for his opponents, and so they averaged 1 point a match.
That's the picture of dominance, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, 8 to 1, basically average scores, pretty good at the Ohio State tournament.
When we get him on, we'll ask this, but I mean, it's got to be tough to come into a season after that being the one that's always hunted, the one with the target on your back. Everyone obviously knows now that you're a state champion, and you're going to get everyone's absolute best because everyone wants a piece of the guy that won it the year before.
Yeah, and that's a good question to ask, and I'm interested to hear what he has to say. Once you get to the top of the mountain, sometimes you'll see, kids who just kind of the next season aren't as motivated. So to keep that motivation, that's definitely a good question to ask. I know in my coaching career, I saw a kid that was a state champion 1 year prior, not even make the state tournament the next year. So, I guess it'd be different for everyone. Does the fire keep burning after you get it the first time? Do you want to repeat? Do you want to be in that special category of multiple time state champion? I'll be interested to hear what he has to say.
And the best of the best always find a way to put that chip back on their shoulder and find some way to motivate themselves, even if they're the reigning champion. So I'm also interested to hear what his little chip or what he's put on his back this year to almost make himself feel like the underdog, even though he's not.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear too. That whole Louisville team, that whole room, I'm sure with the amount of good kids that they have on that team, there's a lot of motivated people in the room. You get around motivated people, it's easy to be motivated. I think that goes for anything in life. You get around people that are, excited to do what you're doing and excited to move forward and to get better every day. It's probably not really hard to get motivated in that wrestling room.
All right, we're going to see if we fix these issues. Dominic, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Awesome, we got it. So we were talking a little bit before, during those issues and questions that we're dying to ask you. So we're just going to get started with the big one. Reigning state champion last year. What did it feel like coming into this year, knowing that you're kind of you have the target on your back now? You're the guy that everyone wants to beat. Everyone wants a piece of the champion. What has been the mindset through that?
I don't really know. I don't think any of the mindset really changed. It's wrestling at the end of the day, and I just always try to improve and get better. Like, yeah, I know everyone's coming for me, but at the same time, I know I just try to better myself every day and get better at wrestling, better at every aspect of my life to just become whole, basically.
Dominic, I got your state bracket pulled up here. Looks like your closest match was that opening round. Then you won. You teched the next kid 16-0. And then the semis, you won 10-1. And the finals, you won 6-0. Were you just laser focused? Did you have a goal in mind? Were you just wrestling at your peak? Because you had a pretty dominant tournament.
Yeah, like I went into that tournament and like before, I just felt so locked in the whole time. And actually, at districts the weekend before, I got third because I lost my quarterfinals match at districts because the other kid did the right things and I didn't hydrate, didn't eat well after weigh-ins and stuff, gassed out in the match. So I kind of used that too as like motivation. Like I didn't want that to ever happen again. So I tried to do everything right throughout the tournament, keep my mindset like I knew what my goal was. I wanted to win a state title, and that's what I did.
All right, so take us through being that laser focused and being that committed to a goal, and then finally achieving it. That moment that you're able to relax and realize that you're a state champion. What was that like emotionally?
Emotionally, it like you kind of just feel like everything you did throughout the whole season like paid off. All the hard work, all the extra stuff you did just paid off, and then like getting to go see your family, like give your coaches a hug, give your family a hug. Like it was a surreal experience.
So I ask this every week, and every wrestling coach and wrestler knows this is important, but you don't become a state champion without having a good drilling partner. So who is your drilling partner now, and who has it been in the past? Who's the guy you look to know that's going to make you better and push you?
Right now I drill with Dylan Rhodes, and I'll drill with our head coach Micah Coolman, and I'll drill with like almost everyone in the room, but those are the two main ones. And then like last year I drove with Pito Castro most of the year, and then like years before that, Davin Rhodes, Garrett Althiser, Dan Adams, like all those guys in the Louisville room.
And you mentioned all those guys in Louisville room, and the one thing we notice about Louisville wrestling is how good it is widespread throughout that room. What do you think it is about the culture of this program that makes it such a powerhouse and makes guys keep coming in and keep having success year after year?
I think it's because we all kind of have that same goal. We all just want to get better, to push each other, like, and like outside of the room, we all hang out. Like, we're just like a big family, basically. We're all super close. Like, we all just want the best for each other.
So, being a state champ, you already said everybody's got their target on you. Do you have a rival now this year or in the past, like a guy that pushes you, maybe you went back and forth with, or somebody that when you wrestle, you've got to be on your game because they're going to be coming at you?
I don't think I have like a specific rival. Yeah, I don't think I have anyone like that.
To expand on that question, though, is there one team or one program that, like, when you guys wrestle and the team wrestles, that you get a little bit more amped up? Like, these are the guys that we want to beat, something like that?
I think I get equally amped up every single match. It doesn't really matter, like, who it is.
So what are your goals now for this year? I'm sure you want to repeat, be the state champion again, but do you want to, so you didn't win the district last year. Is that a goal for you? Or do you want to be as dominant this year as you were last year? What are you thinking that we head in the postseason here?
I just want to dominate every match. I just want to go out there and leave no questions.
Sectionals are this weekend, so your road to a repeat is officially underway. What have been some things that you've been doing the last couple of weeks after the end of the regular season to really prepare yourself mentally and physically for this challenging stretch of tournaments that you're going to have in front of you?
Well, physically, like, been really working on like every single aspect of my wrestling, getting down to the fine details, working on my strengths, tweaking up some little things like that I needed to work on. We practice every single day. We practice twice a day sometimes with like morning workouts. Go to the gym, lift with Don Wazowski. He's my trainer at My Fit Life, and just all that, doing everything right, putting in all the work. So don't no regrets or anything. And then, mentally, I'll like listen to different podcasts. I'll watch stuff on YouTube. I'll write things down. Like I just want to be like all the full round ready to go, because like that's my goal, to repeat it.
Quick follow up: what are some of your favorite podcasts that you listen to get yourself mentally in the right state?
It's not really any specific ones. I'll just look up stuff on YouTube. Uh, it's not always podcasts. Sometimes it'll just be like different videos on YouTube that like um get me thinking about stuff, like what I really want, like my goals, and like just things like that. I like to do that a lot in like the mornings, like on the ride to school. I'll listen to something like that, or like before I go to bed, like just something to listen to like as I'm going to sleep.
So you talked about that district loss, where you said your opponent did the right things, and you didn't. One of them was being hydrated, and the food that you ate. So do you have now a routine to make sure that doesn't happen again? Do you hydrate with 20 ounces of a sports drink, and then you have certain foods that you eat to make you feel good?
Yeah, I kind of like do about the same thing every time. I'll drink Gatorade water. And I feel like now I know my body enough. I'll know like when I feel good, and not like overdo it. I might have stopped there for a second, but know what to do. And then this year I was down at 144, but then I came up to 150. So like weight's not even really an issue anymore.
Mm.
So since we're talking about routines, I want you to take us through a typical like a match day, and what kind of goes through your typical match day, getting ready to hit the mats on that day.
So if it's like a tournament, I'll wake up in the morning, like get ready, get dressed, everything. Usually like to listen to some music on the way to the tournament, on the ride there and stuff. But then when I get to the tournament, I don't really listen to music during the day or like when I'm wrestling. That's kind of like a beforehand thing. And then I'll just talk with some of the guys on the team, just not really like all the way locked in yet. Just know that I'm going to wrestle, but also not like put like pressure on myself. But then after like weigh-ins, I feel like the moment I get locked in, it's like when we start warming up, I'll be like, yeah, it's time to go.
So you've probably been doing this sport a long time, to have the success you had. What is your favorite part about the sport? Whether it's maybe certain things at practice, competition day, what is it that gets you most amped up about wrestling?
I don't know. I just have fun wrestling, like have fun wrestling in the room. We just challenge each other. It's like, yeah, it's hard, but it's fun at the end of the day. And obviously winning's like, you win, that's a fun experience too. And like I feel like I've met so many people through wrestling and made so many good relationships that just came from the sport, which is really good.
With your success comes a lot of younger eyes on you, and I'm sure there's a lot of young Louisville Leopards that want to be like you when they get into high school, want to have the success you've been able to have. What's that like for you to know that you're a role model now, and that when you wrestle, there's the future of this program watching you and taking notes from what you do?
Yeah, it's a really great experience. Like I know a couple times I would go to the like Glen Oak OYWA stuff, which is like 6th grade and under, and all those kids, they will like come like give me fives and stuff, and it's really cool. And like sometimes I'll see them because they'll have youth practice after high school practice. Sometimes I'll talk to some of the little kids, and they get really excited. And it's really like it's a really great experience.
Who did you look up to when you were growing up into the sport?
Let me think. I feel like when I was younger, I would look at like college guys like Kyle Day. He was a big guy I looked at. David Taylor, those kind of guys. Then when I got a little bit older, I saw David Carr wrestle, and I like watching him wrestle a lot. And I would go to the Riggs Elite room, and he'd be in there sometimes, and I'd wrestle with him, like roll around, and that was always fun.
So I have to ask, what did it feel like? You're on the mat, you're in Columbus, time runs off the clock, you win 6-0, you're now a state champion. What does that exact moment feel like? The ref raises your hand, that arena's full, and now you're first place, you're standing on top of that podium.
It's just super exciting. Like you just feel like all your work paid off, and then like I know when I got my hand raised, like my parents and my family was like right in front of me, and I could like see them like cheering. Really nice.
We also have to talk about your future a little bit and what your plans are after high school. So talk about, what's kind of going through your mind about what you want to do after you graduate at Louisville.
After I graduate, I'm gonna be going to Ohio University and wrestling there, and I'm also gonna be studying bio pre-med.
What was it about Ohio U in that program that made you decide that was the place where you wanted to be during that recruiting process?
When I went on my visit there, well, first I went to a summer like worked out with them, and I remember coming home that day. I was like, I really liked it there. Like, I can't wait to go on my visit. And then I started like talking to some of the guys on the team, like Zane Lehman, and Coach Greenlee would always call me and stuff and talk with me. And then I went on my visit, and my mom went with me. She liked the school a lot. The campus is super nice. They have like a lot of like sources, like resources for their student athletes. They have like nice facilities, and I just really bonded with the team. We got to hang out with them. I like the coaches. Like it was just everything. And then like I feel like overall I just had a gut feeling that that's like what's the place where I wanted to be.
All right, more of a fun question now. What's your favorite move?
Favorite move? I don't know. Probably just snap down to a single or go behind.
That's great.
Are those also like your go-to moves? Like, okay, this is the one, or maybe a signature move that you would say you have?
Yeah, probably just fake snap, drag, fake snap, a single, like just get people not knowing where I'm going to be, get them guessing, basically.
All right, Dominic, before we let you go, I want to give you the chance to thank your support system, all the people that have been there for you throughout your career. Give them all a shout out and how much they mean to you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you to everyone that has ever helped me, my family, my mom, my dad. They've helped me a lot through everything. Like, I had ups and downs in my career, and they've helped me a lot through that. I started out at Sandy Valley. Those people helped me a lot just developing me as a young wrestler. Ryan Moyer, Coach Donahue there, they were all really good to me. Kenny Fletcher, he passed away a couple years ago. He was one of my youth coaches, and he was a great role model for me. He helped me out a lot. It came to everything. And then when I came to Louisville, I met a ton of great people. Dante Rini, he helped me out a lot. Dylan Wazowski, my trainer at My Fit Life, I'm super close with him. He's a great person. Micah Coleman, I love him as a coach and as a friend. And just everyone else, Coach Rocky Laughlin, all the coaches here at Louisville, and just all my friends, family, everyone.
All right, Dominic, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It was great to have a reigning state champ on the show. We appreciate your time. We wish you the best of luck in your next run, and we can't wait to talk to you again real soon.
All right. Thank you for having me.
You got it, bud. Dominic Hoffarth, the reigning state champion from Louisville, joining us on the show today. What a great interview, Gary! I ask you after every interview, what was your biggest takeaway of talking to Dominic today?
Well, he said, his favorite part was winning, and that's a simple answer, but it's the truth. Winning makes everything fun, and he was honest about that. He said, they go at it, they challenge each other, and his favorite part about it is winning. And another thing, I know we talked about this before, but he talked about all the people that he's met in the sport. That's one thing that's so great about the sport, because it's an individual sport, because you travel all around the state and the country, and you're in these gyms for hours and hours at a time. In between your matches, you're out talking to the other kids on the other teams and the coaches and the parents. And it's such a great way to bond. And it's what makes the sport, what it is, because, wrestlers support wrestlers, and he nailed it on the head right there with those two things. What's great about it? Well, when you get your hand raised, it's great. And when you get to meet so many people, and then you get excited about seeing them at the tournaments and seeing them wrestle and rooting for them. I thought that was a really nice, simple, and very honest answer.
I'm with you. I love that he was just straightforward with it. It was like, I like winning, you have a lot of kids, they'll try to do the politically correct answer. I like to just compete out there and, no, I like winning. That's just straight up Mamba mentality, not to cross sports a little bit, but that's just that killer instinct a little bit where I'm here to win. And he didn't say I want to win in the tournament. He said I want to dominate. I want to dominate my matches. So he has that killer instinct that you have to be at the highest level of any sport. That I'm beating you by 20, but I want to beat you by 30 kind of mindset.
Yeah, and I really liked his answer when I asked him what his favorite move was. He didn't get complicated, and he just said a snap down and go behind, and that's one of the it's one of the most basic moves in wrestling, but it's also one of the most effective. And I think there was a time where it was the number one takedown in college wrestling. So it was nice to hear him say that. He didn't complicate things. He was honest about the sport. He's honest about what he does and what he wants to do. So if he takes that kind of mindset into the postseason, I'm sure he's going to be back on top of that podium.
I love it, because when we see players the highest level of any sport, any kind of skill position, they can do some flashy things that other guys just can't do, and they have the talent to be able to do those. But then when you watch them, they are also the best at the simple, basic fundamentals of the sport. And that's what Dominic is so good at. Yeah, he has the talent to do some stuff that I'm sure other wrestlers just can't do, and that's why he's a state champion. But it's still the fundamentals and the roots of the sport are what he thrives at, and that's why he's the best in the state right now.
Yeah, and like he said, he's in that room. He didn't have one guy that he drills with. He called out a bunch of names, and we recognize a lot of those names because they were very successful.
Probably because not one guy won the drill with him every day.
Yeah, it could be true too. They're trying to avoid him because he's the crazy guy in the room that just goes 100,000% every minute. But this 138-pound weight class, as I'm looking at this bracket, he wins it 2022, and they have the place winners from the season before sitting right there. And lo and behold, 2021 state champion was Davin Rhodes from Louisville. So those are the kind of guys that he's drilling with every day. It's no wonder that he's so good.
And now, like we said in that interview, the sectionals are this weekend. So him and a bunch of other guys around the YSN family are going to be starting their journey to a state championship. It all starts with the first step, which is sectionals, Gary. Obviously, sectionals is the round where there are so many wrestlers to talk about. There's such a big pool. It really narrows down after you get to districts and of course the next step. But when you see the sectionals and you see kind of how it's scoping out, what are some thoughts when you look at the brackets, and what are some of your general thoughts before we dive into it a little bit?
Well, brackets aren't out yet, but I'm sure every coach, when the brackets do come out, if they're like me, they're obsessing over them and looking at where your kid's going to go, possibly who they could wrestle. And then you start taking mental notes on, what you saw from those wrestlers and what to watch out for, what might work, what might not. But at the same time, I keep most of that in my brain because I don't want the kids to be thinking too much. I just want them to be loose and be ready and be motivated to get out there and do their best. And usually you do that by just making them comfortable. And I can't say it enough. Being loose as a wrestler will help you wrestle to your best, because if you're overthinking, if you're tight, if you're nervous because it's sectionals, okay, it's the postseason, sometimes you can choke, and then all that work that you did, it doesn't come to fruition. So keeping your mind calm is an easy way to start.
Who are some wrestlers that you've either seen or you've heard, seen the stats for, seen the scores of, that you think that aren't necessarily the favorites, but can make some noise in sectionals?
Off the top of my head, you talking about just for sectionals? Heck, it could be anybody. You see, and this happens every single year. You see, when the postseason comes, there'll be some kids that shut down, that they're just ready to move on to the spring sport, or they're just kind of burnt out or tired, or maybe they got lingering injuries, or they've been cutting weight all year, or maybe they just have a bad day and they end up not making it out, or not getting to the state tournament, sometimes even losing in sectionals. And then you'll see other kids who just come out and surprise you. Like, you've seen the kid, maybe you've got some potential, you've seen the potential, and now it's the end of the season and things are clicking. So gelling and peaking at the end of the season is of the utmost importance. And you'll see it on both ends of the spectrum. You'll see kids that, at the beginning of the year, maybe they're 500, maybe they're a little bit over 500. And all of a sudden, they're just coming out of nowhere. They're beating these guys that maybe they've lost to or got pinned by earlier in the season, because they now, for whatever reason, are wrestling at their best, and they're ready to go and, get to Columbus.
When you think about your sectionals as a coach and some of the routines that you do when you do get those brackets, we talked about your idea from coaching in general, but what are some of your routines with your team, and how are you going to handle the next couple of days once the brackets do come out and you're able to lock in on who your wrestlers are going to be matched up against?
So this week we're just we're getting our minds focused. We're taking our time. We're working on each position. We're going one day top position, one day bottom, one day neutral. One day we're going to kind of just work with the kids individually as coaches, what they need to work on, as a wrestler themselves. And then the Friday, the day before, we're trying to make weight, make sure our minds are sharp and get ready. That's our routine and my routine for right now. And I hope that the kids don't look at the brackets, because the more they look at the brackets, the more they're going to think about the guys that they're wrestling. I'd rather, if I could make it so that they have zero access to the brackets, I would do that in a heartbeat.
So, like, in your perfect world, they would show up and be like, okay, that's who I'm wrestling. Not even have a chance to even think about it.
Exactly. You didn't know until you got, if it's the old school way, you wouldn't know until you got to the tournament and the tournament director printed off the brackets and taped them on the wall out the cafeteria or whatever. And even then, if it was in a perfect world, they wouldn't see any, they wouldn't know that they were wrestling until they get, called on the loudspeaker, saw their name come up on the bow board.
I would love it if other sports were like that. Just show up here. We'll tell you who you're playing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's better. I mean, it's so much better that way. There's just you can't overthink if you don't know who you're going against. And there's a lot to be said about that. And I'll tell you that the wrestlers I see that perform at the highest constantly do not care who they wrestle. It doesn't matter. They're not looking at the brackets. They're not looking at their record. They're not looking at where they're from. They're relaxed in between matches, sometimes taking a nap. And then they wake up, oh, I better get ready. I'm going to be wrestling here in a little bit. They get their stuff on. They head down towards the mat. They start warming up. They go to the mat they're ready that they're going to wrestle on. They get ready and they go. That's a perfect world, because you're staying loose, but you got to get up and get ready because it's about to be go time. And whoever's standing across from you, what's the difference? He weighs the same that you do. She weighs the same that you do. It's the same size mat. There's one referee, and it's 6 minutes.
And you bring up staying loose. I mean, take us to how long could a wrestler's day be at sectionals? I mean, obviously everyone's got to go, and you're not going to be wrestling back to back to back to back. So how long could your day be when you show up with your team and you're waiting for your turn to wrestle, and then you win and you have to go wait for your turn again? How long could your day be at a sectional tournament?
I mean, long, very long. Some sectionals are 2 days long. So you're saying if it's a 2-day tournament, you probably go on Friday. So, I mean, you wake up, you go to school, then you leave from school early, you head to the site, you get weighed in, you probably start wrestling in the afternoon sometime, and then you wrestle until the evening, probably 9 o'clock. Then you go back home or the hotel, get up early the next morning and head back out for what could be another 15, 17-hour day sometimes. I mean, we have to leave on Saturday. Ours is just a 1-day tournament, but we have to go to Rootstown, from Wellsville, way down the most southern point of Columbiana County. I'm heading all the way up near Kent. It's like an hour and 15 or 20-minute drive. Weigh-ins are at 8 o'clock, so I got to leave at 6:30 in the morning. That means they have to get up at 5:30. Get their stuff ready, get down to the room, check their weight. Bus gets there, we get on the bus, we head straight up, we get weighed in, then they go hydrate, they eat, they warm up, and then wrestling starts, and then it goes all the way through. So I mean, it can really be a long day, and that's a big gripe in the wrestling community, is about the long days. You get parents that come, they could sit there for hours and hours to watch their kid wrestle. That's why, in my opinion, why the state was trying to push the duels so much. They've kind of backed off from that a little bit now, where they used to require 4 of your points. You get 20 points each contest. Each thing that you go to has a point value assessed to it. 4 of your 20 points had to be used for duels, and I think that was kind of why they wanted people and wanted teams to wrestle more duels, to have that kind of basketball or football game experience where you go in, you're there for a couple of hours, and then you're done. The fans can go home. But wrestlers know what a long day is. I mean, the grind of wrestling isn't just in the practice room and on the mat. It's also in the bleachers and walking around the gymnasiums.
Yeah, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the parents won't know when their kid is wrestling until they show up there. So it's not like you can plan ahead and be like, okay, we have to be at the school at 2:30 because he's going to wrestle at 2:30. You can't do that ahead of time. You just show up there and, hey, this is when you're wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. Because depending on the weight class, if you go to a regular tournament, what they'll do is they'll start at whatever weight class has the most wrestlers in it, because they probably have more. The bracket's just bigger, so they have more lines to wrestle through. So you don't know how big that's going to be until the day you get there, the day that they weigh in. You can't even judge by how many teams are going to be there, because you don't know if every team has that weight, if the kid's going to make weight, if he's injured, maybe he has a skin problem and the refs don't clear him to wrestle. So you're right. The parents, I just tell my parents wrestling starts at 10. I would be there at 10, and sometimes they have to wait a couple of hours to see their kid wrestle. But again, that's why the community is so tight, because during those times, that's when you talk to the other parents and the kids, and hey, my kid's not wrestling. Well, I'm going to watch his teammates and root for him.
And then if there's a really long wait, hopefully Rootstown is a spot where you can go and have a meal, maybe with the other parents. Hey, let's end up B-dubs real quick. We'll be back in a couple hours.
Yeah. Sometimes there are breaks before the finals. A lot of the tournaments have gotten away from that because they don't want people sitting there all night. But that means that the concession stands need to be on point, and a lot of wrestling programs buy their uniforms, give their kids money to eat, buy the awards at the end of the season, do everything that they need to do from those concession stands. So I would beg anyone that's going to a wrestling tournament to watch your kid or your family member, your friend, don't eat before you go. Go there and eat, support those guys. Those are parents that are usually volunteering at those concession stands, and those wrestling teams, they really need that to kind of fund the things that they're doing, because that's where their main fundraisers come from, is those concession stands. And having a good concession stand after weigh-in is a great thing for not only the fans, but definitely the kids too.
What is, in your mind, what is the, like, if you're taking a concession stand list and you're like, this is the first thing we have to make sure we have a lot of, what do you think it is in a concession stand, especially for wrestling?
Oh, well, you got to have some kind of a sports drink. You got to have a Gatorade, a Powerade, You got to have bottled water, because they need to stay hydrated that entire time. Outside of that, you got to have something so that the kids, if they're going to eat, they can't just have candy and chips.
Right.
Having some pepperoni rolls, some sandwiches. I'll tell you what, Liberty, Youngstown Liberty, you want to talk about a place with some good food, that's a great place to go for wrestling tournaments. I think they even had soup for us once. That's, I'm all about that, any kind of hearty meal like that. But I would definitely say the sports drink. And then if having some fruit there as well, something the kids can grab, oranges, apples, those kind of things. My kids don't eat that. Things, they don't do that stuff. They're going after the finger food, the pizza. They're kids. They weigh in. I don't ever get on them about what they eat. If they want to eat healthy, I definitely encourage them to do that. But I want them to be kids too.
Oh man! So obviously we can't dive too deep into the sectionals because the brackets aren't out yet. But before we end this episode, do you have any final thoughts about sectionals this weekend and what fans should look forward to when they're going to their sectionals?
The Northwestern sectional, Division III Northwestern sectional, is going to be a grinder. It's going to be a meat grinder. There's tons of great teams there. South Range and Waynedale are both going to be there. That sectional, I'm really interested to see what turns out there, how those teams do with that high level competition. You're going to have multiple state ranked guys in most of the weights in that sectional. So I'm really going to be interested to see how the teams respond, because some of these kids would normally be meeting in the district tournament because they're in separate sectionals. But this year, for the 14 teams that are going there, several of them have switched from another sectional to choose to go to that Northwestern. So you're going to see some high level matches against kids that are state ranked at the sectional and the semifinals, before you even get to the finals, where you wouldn't see them until, the district's a couple of matches into the district tournament.
Well, we can't wait to recap all these great sectional matches next week for episode 11. I can't believe we're in double digits. This is episode 10 of Wrestling Wednesday. We've been doing this for 10 weeks.
Well, we've been doing it longer than that. We took about 2 or 3 weeks off.
Yeah, we took a hiatus during Christmas, but this is our 10th week. And actually, the show was on a hiatus during that week, too. So this is our 10th week, not consecutive, but our 10th week of the show with Wrestling Wednesdays. So, here we go, man. Week 11 is going to be great because we're going to have so much wrestling to kind of recap, and hopefully we can grab one of the guys that really dominates the sectionals and bring him on next week for episode 11. Gary, thank you so much for always taking the time, always sharing the knowledge with us, and we appreciate the time and the effort that you put into this show, and we'll see you again next week for episode 11.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it. Have a good one.